fingers are done. Textures are still getting to that. Sometimes even it'll be a nice help. It'll also be certain. Yeah. But it's what it's cancer.
Hello, everybody. Hi. Hi. Thank you. Thanks for coming today. I'm going to introduce our friend here, Roger C. Francis II, and he is getting his BFA in painting and drawing. He's a very talented artist, as you can see, and accomplished draftsman. His imagery stems from pop culture, comic books, movies, mythology, cartoons, and politics. Roger blends these into surrealistic works, which call up images from the past and ideas for the future. He's been an artist and a designer for over 25 years and works in a variety of media. I think his favorite is ink. Create ink. He's made numerous book covers, illustrations, t-shirt designs, poster designs. He's been in the Columbia College Student Art Show for the past 3 years. Yeah. And received Best of Show in 2013. He's also been in the MU Museum of Art and Archaeology, Art After Dark. He's been in other group shows, and let's see, he's participated in the Columbia Storm Drain Project, and if you don't know about that, look around town and you might see some of the storm drains painted and embellished. Roger was selected to participate in that in 2012, and let's see, he's been really helpful around the department. He's really created a sense of community here. And Roger helps us too with the Summer Arts Intensive, our high school art program that we run here every summer. So he's really part of the family. And so let's see, I asked him a few questions this morning. His favorite comic book villain is the Joker. His favorite non-comic book villain is Jeffrey Dahmer. He's going to have to explain that. And his favorite illustrators are Marie Sendak, R. Crumb, and Robert Williams. Let's see, music that he'll have on during, when he's working in the studio. He said sometimes folky, bands like the Decemberists or the Indigo Girls. And let's see, his favorite Dr. Seuss book is The Lorax. And to end my introduction here, also there's this wonderful video, this documentary on Roger done by Heather Hart, and that's really great. And also, Roger has a merch table over here if you haven't seen that, and also, of course, the wonderful food spread. It looks fantastic. So, anyway, I'm going to end the intro with a quiz on Roger. So, you can all participate. Some of you might instantly know what's the right answer. So, there are 3 possibilities here. So, number 1, Roger was a member of the steampunk band, the Clockwork Quartet. That's number 1. Number 2, he was a hairdresser in the mid-90s at Magic Hair Salon, and that's hair, of course, H-A-R-E. Number 3, Roger worked for MoDOT, designing signage, placards, and road icons. Any guesses? Oh, there's no prize. You just
what are we guessing?
Number 2. Any other? Number 2. Okay. You won. It's number 2. Hairdresser in the mid-90s. Anyway, please welcome Roger Francis.
I want to thank everybody for showing up. Before I go too much into me, because it's all about me, I want to say some thank yous. Particularly, thank you to Teresa Murrell for doing all the munchies over there. Eat, nom. I don't want to take anything home, except for maybe the chocolate. And the trays. I want to make a particular point to thank the instructors here. I've managed to go through all the art department instructors in something, and I haven't managed to scare any of them off. Scott questions sometimes, but particularly, Naomi for letting me. There's an anecdote that goes with that. One day I was working on a painting, and she came up, and in all honesty, she said, starts with, "We normally try to get the BFA people not to work in fantasy," and she stopped, and she was about to say not to work in fantasy, and she looked at what I was doing and said, you know what, you just go. I don't even know if she remembers that, but that's something I always remember. It's when I was working with the one with the big sun in it. And you came up and you were concerned at first and you just said, no, you go with it. And I want to thank both Bo and Kenny Green, wherever Kenny's back there, because they let me work in the 3D stuff, which I don't do a lot of 3D, so they let me get a little crazy in something that I don't normally work in, so. I had read once in a philosophy statement that Kung Fu is not a fighting style. Kung Fu is a way of life. That whatever you do, that is your Kung Fu. So if you happen to be a martial artist, that is your Kung Fu. That is what you live for. If you happen to be a musician, and one of these musicians that every minute is music, that is your Kung Fu. In regards to that, Bruce Lee, when he created Jeet Kune Do, used to tell a story about Kung Fu. There was a Kung Fu master that a young man had gone to, and he'd already studied other forms. And when he went to the master started to tell him about his Kung Fu. And every few minutes he would go, oh yeah, we have that in my style too, or we have that in my style too. So finally, the master says, would you like some tea? The man, of course, said yes. So the master brought out the tea set, and he took his cup and filled it. Then he handed the young man a cup, and he started to fill it. And as it reached the brim, he kept pouring until it started going over the sides of the cup. And finally, the man took it away and said, what are you doing? And he said, young man, how can I fill your cup if you don't empty it first? January of 2011, having had on and off good and bad times through my life, I reached the point where I pretty much had nothing. And I decided it was time for me to go back to school, to finally get my bachelor's degree after all these years. So on January 12th, 2011, I attempted to empty my cup. I came back here, and my original plan as, you know, a returning student in my 40s, we won't say how far in the 40s, the plan was for me just to sit there, stay quiet in the back. I was going to, I was just going to do my assignments, and
What is he talking about?
people started noticing me enough that not, even if the students would have let me do that, none of the teachers would have, particularly Ben Cameron. Ben was always, no, he tagged me and knew I was a troublemaker and used that a lot in his classes. So I came back. I started working. Thanks to Naomi, I finally got a chance to work in oils that I had never worked in before. I went through all the painting classes. I went through all the drawing classes. I skipped out on photography, but I did do filmmaking, so. And thanks to Scott, my photography's gotten better anyway, despite myself.
You'd show up in my office almost every day.
Yeah, I always
Some
had new
questions.
questions, and yeah. So I kind of took the class without paying for it. Shh.
You audited.
I audited, right. And over the course of the years, there will be people that tell you I have raw talent. My mother used to say that I was drawing as soon as I could pick up a pencil. Raw talent can only get you so far. Even after a first year here, I myself could see the change in my work. And the more I worked, the more obsessive I got about it. And that is where this is all coming from now. Where it used to be a single character or a few things on a page, now it's an entire obsession of work. All of these pieces have been within the last year, starting with that one. I was taking what we call special problems. For those of you who don't know, all artists have special problems. In that, we at Columbia College have a directed study where you go in and do your own work, and we call it special problems. And so during the special problems, I was just supposed to be doing drawings with Mike Sled, and he had the class come in and do, as a big group piece, one of these big pieces. And I wanted to see how much I could get done in a day. So I attacked that with pens. No line, no pencil lines, no planning out, I just started going. For the rest of the semester, that's what I worked on. And after finishing that piece, I knew that that was a direction I needed to go. So everything else in this gallery has been created since that piece. So this has all just been a year's work. My stuff is, like Scott said in the introduction, it's a combination of pop culture, cartoons, politics. A lot of times I don't know where something is going when I start, but I have an idea of what I want to say sometimes, and when I do, that's where it starts with. And this is what happens. If I have any word for anybody in here, doesn't matter if you're an artist, a photographer, a painter, potter, computer science person, maybe even a mathematician. We all know how I feel about math, but if that's your kung fu, then that's the path you need to follow. You need to keep following that no matter what else anybody says. At one point, this is what I should have been doing. And it was the 80s when I got out of high school. And in the 80s, everybody said, because the 80s was all about money. And everybody looked at me and said, you shouldn't go into art because there's no money in art. You should do something real. So I didn't follow my art into college. My associate's degree was a theater degree because I was on a theater scholarship because I didn't know what else to do. Over the years, I worked in factories, I was in a call center, I was management, hairdresser, worked in gas stations. I mean, I've done almost everything you can conceivably do except fast food. And that's because McDonald's wouldn't hire me. And after being in the town I was in, Farmington, after I used up all of the jobs, I was making a surviving money by going to bars at night and selling drawings for $20 a pop. And I realized that all those people that told me I shouldn't go into art, if I had listened to them, I would have been on the street hungry. And so I thought, okay, I'll get back into art. And every place I went to try to get a job, they kept telling me, well, do you have a bachelor's degree? And I didn't. And they wouldn't look at my portfolio without it. So here I am. I'm basically, if it hadn't been for Clarence Hall and his wife, I would have been on the street. But I was destitute. I was not making a livable wage. And I realized that it's time to go back to school. When you're destitute, it looks really good on financial aid forms. And so, filled it out. I had friends in Jeff City that were wanting me to come and live in their basement anyway, so I moved to Jeff City, started coming to school here, and for better or for worse, 4 years later, here we all are. Thank you, everybody. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, Drew?
Well, it's like, you know, I've had this conversation with you before about how your art tends to be very punk and graphic novel, and you know, I like that stuff a lot, but there's a lot of people in the art world who do kind of look down on it. So how do you go about dealing with those attitudes, perhaps changing them or ignoring them?
Part of it is ignore it. Part of it is the beauty of the time we live in is there's a lot of stuff happening out, that's been happening out on the West Coast that uses this same type of imagery, and it's starting to spread out. Like Robert Williams that I mentioned, he does paintings. He has problems showing in America. There's some punk galleries that'll show him, but he can show in Europe all over the place. They love the work, they love the freshness of it. So people, the art people are starting to open their eyes more to it. It's still a harder road to take if you're trying to get this stuff into galleries, but it's not impossible, you know. Yes?
Do you see an overarching theme or statement throughout the bulk of your work?
If there is, it's, the bulk of my work really is just one man trying to deal with what he sees in the world. And so when I see things that I can't comprehend any other way, they end up on the paper. That's my catharsis of trying to deal with everything that's going on. Yes?
If you had to, could you choose a favorite piece or a piece that you feel like speaks the bulk of your message stronger than the others?
If out of this series, I actually have to say this piece here, the centerpiece of the show. And it's not about the voice in it, it's the work in it. That's what started everything else. So no matter how much I might like individual pieces, all of them stem back to this piece. So it's kind of the godfather of everything else in the hall.
So what's next? I mean, all these pieces are obviously like incredible, and you seem to have a really good camera illustration. Where are you going to go with it?
For one, I'm trying to get into a master's program.
Okay.
The plan is get into a master's program, get my master's degree. I would love to teach on a college level. College level because I want the kids after they've already been broken, so I can just put the pieces back together. If I have a student in my class, I want them to be in my class because they want to be there, not because it's required. That being said, I want to teach because that way I know I'm going to have, and this is having been where I've been, teaching means living indoors and eating on a regular basis. And then, if I sell any of my stuff, that's my money to play with. So, this stuff is never going to stop. If you guys who know me know it never stops. There's always something going on. So,
Sitting at lunch,
sitting, in class. Sorry, Richard, I can't stop drawing in your class. Pat?
Is there going to be a return of color in your work?
There actually is going to be a few different returns of color. I'm working on a drawing right now that is the complete antithesis of this. There is almost no black work in it whatsoever. It is all being drawn out just like this, but it's all done completely in various colors. There's also a piece I had talked to Scott about what I'd like to do is take some of my photography, project it onto a page, pencil in what I see. So I have the representation of whatever it was. Turn off the projector, take an eraser, erase big chunks out of it. What is left of the line drawing, go back with the black pen, fill it all in. And then take a color pen and draw in fantasy coming off of that through the entire piece. So where the holes are will be non-reality imposing itself on the real. Anybody else? Sarah?
So was it this piece that you said you just attacked it without making an outline or anything? Was that the first piece that you really done that with?
For a finish, I mean, sitting there doodling, you might do it, but for an actual finished piece, that's the first time I'd ever done that. And in fact, all of the big pieces were all done that way. They were all done stream of conscious. I would just start, and I would have an idea where I wanted to go, but I would just go and not try to overthink it. I would just let the piece happen.
And do you think that's improved your drawing skill?
I think it has because anybody who's taken a class with me, and they know that I always suggest at least once every couple of weeks you should do a day drawing with just Sharpies. No pencils, nothing you can erase, because if you do a day like that, after doing a whole day of drawing with Sharpies, you get a chance to erase and everything's like, oh, this is much easier now. And by doing these without any forethought other than what's going to happen in it, it's given me a higher level of confidence on the other pieces. So the penciling, when I do that, is like, okay, that part's done, now let's go with it. So.
Was it difficult getting over that roadblock of just draw?
Let's put it this way, I'm 46 years old and I've just started doing it, so it kind of did, yeah. It was, particularly with this piece, because like I didn't know where I was going to go with it, and so once I started, I didn't know what was going to happen. I knew at any given time I could screw something up, and then all those hours and all that paper is just gone, and there's the point of being worried about that, but by knowing that you just have to go with it, and if you can't fix it, then it's over. it's freeing because you don't have to. And I wouldn't try this if I was doing a commission piece. If I was doing a commission piece, I wouldn't want to plan it out so that everything went the way I wanted. But for my own